Hi, I'm Lauren Kingston. I'm the Cultural Resource Program Manager at Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. I'm sorry I can't be there with you all today. I'm sick and I don't want to share this cold with any of you. I'm here to give a short presentation that's really an introduction to the following presentation by Chris Loendorf. With this presentation, I want to just explain the methods of NPS National Park Service-led archaeological project that resulted in the collections that Chris is going to discuss. And before I get going, I just wanted to thank some colleagues for their contributions to this project and this presentation: Matt Gabbard, Charlotte Hart, Andrew Beach, Areta Rodriguez, and Jake DeGainer. Thank you all so much. And next, I have a really scary big slide with lots of words, but it basically just gives the rundown of what of the kind of it's somewhat of a timeline from when we found out that the wall was going to be built in Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument in the spring of 2019 until the fall of that same year when we carried out the data recovery project that resulted in the collections that Chris is going to talk about. So essentially, what happened is we found out in the spring that Organ Pipe was going to get a new border infrastructure, including a new wall, and it was going to cover almost the entirety of our southern border, which is the international border with Mexico, and that they were going to pursue construction under the Real ID Act, which is a 9/11 era law which waives compliance with many federal laws, including the National Environmental Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. There are some big ones. And we in the Park Service were in a very difficult position as the land managing agency where the construction was going to be taking place, but we were not the lead federal agency. The Department of Homeland Security and the Army Corps of Engineers were. And we found out that they would not be doing any sort of preemptive compliance with these laws, even though they were waived. In the past, when this law has been applied to projects, the lead federal agency has often continued to comply with the waived laws, and in doing so, they say they're complying with the spirit of the law. So they'll do like a draft EA, they'll do archaeological data recovery, and in the reports that they produce and stuff, they will say that they complied with the spirit of the law. But that was not the case in this situation. They did not do any preemptive mitigation for the construction. So the National Park Service was in, like I said, sort of a difficult position where we were responsible for managing and protecting resources in a project area and soon to be a construction zone, and we decided that we needed to really understand what was there and collect as much data as we could before they were impacted by the construction. So yeah, this list kind of goes through it's a very simplified timeline of the process, but essentially we worked with the State Historic Preservation Office. We worked with our own internal archaeologists and managers, and we worked with the lead federal agencies to craft a project that included 2 surveys, and then eventually we applied for an Archaeological Resource Protection permit, or Archaeological Resource Protection Act permit, to sort of cover ourselves when we performed a surface collection project where we collected the artifacts from the surface of 7 sites that were going to be impacted by the construction process. And to get that permit, we also consulted with SHPO and Native American tribes. And we also put together a pretty thorough research proposal, and we are almost in the process of finalizing a report from that. And yeah, so we'll just kind of discuss those aspects of the project in the next slides. So like I said, kind of um, the first phases of this project were to carry out 2 surveys, one in June and one in September, to explore areas along the border in Oregon Pipe that either had not been surveyed in the past or had surveys performed that we did not feel met our current standards for data collection. So during these 2 surveys, 5 National Park Service archaeologists carried out a survey of the entire Roosevelt Reservation. You may have saw that term in the last slide and I didn't explain it very well, but it's a federal easement that covers the 60 feet north of the border. So it starts at the border and then covers the 60 feet north. So it's a federal easement that essentially became the project the project area, the construction footprint for the border infrastructure project. And so we attempted and we did survey all the previously unsurveyed areas in that easement within the park during these 2 surveys. And we actually surveyed a little bit north because we had 5 people who were each covering they were spaced 5 meters apart. So they ended up covering about 20 meters north of the Roosevelt Reservation as well. So yeah, the results of the survey were pretty interesting. We excuse me. We recorded many isolated occurrences and isolated features. Those are either artifacts or features that are found outside of a site boundary. And then 6 previously unrecorded pre-contact Native American archaeological sites. And that's in addition to the 5 sites that we knew had been previously recorded in the Roosevelt Reservation. And those sites were also revisited and kind of like their documentation was updated as part of this survey as well. So you can see these numbers don't really add up here, and that's because 6 of the sites that the surveys in the summer of 2019 documented, 3 of those were actually ended up being just north of the Roosevelt Reservation because they had that they were covering that wide area of what turned out to be 82 feet. So those 3 sites, or 3 of the new sites, ended up being just outside of the Roosevelt Reservation. So 3 plus 5 equals 8. So there were 8 total sites within the Roosevelt Reservation within the wall project area after our survey. So another big wordy one, but this explains the next phase in our project timeline. So after the surveys were done is when we created a project proposal and planned this data recovery, which was collecting artifacts from the surface of archaeological sites. And this is what we applied for the ARPA permit to complete. And so the data recovery had 2 sort of collection area types: low density collection areas and high density collection areas. 6 of the 8 sites were low density collection areas. So for those ones, all artifacts were just collected from the sites, and they were bagged separately in point provenance. A total of 73 bags were collected from these low density collection areas, and one site from this type was was unfortunately impacted by construction before we were able to get out there. So construction was moving really fast, and so we were cut off from it before we were able to get there. And so the high density collection areas consisted of 2 sites, and in these areas, because the artifact density was so great, we created a grid system within the site boundary, the portions of the site boundary within the Roosevelt Reservation. And you can see that here. So there were 91 units, and each unit was broken up into 3 subunits. And in each subunit, All artifacts of the same type were collected and bagged together. So all ceramics were bagged together, all lithics were bagged together, all historic artifacts were bagged together, and given each of those bags given a field number, with the exception of diagnostic artifacts such as projectile points or decorated ceramics. Those, each received their own FS number and were point convenience. So I mean, we GPSed, we took a point of those individual artifact locations. We did not have the in-house capacity to carry out a really rigorous artifact analysis. As part of this project, we were able to complete the field work just barely in-house, but we were able to partner with the Gila River Indian Community Cultural Resource Management Program to carry out the artifact analysis and the documentation of all the artifacts found during our data recovery project. So that analysis is now complete, and Chris will be discussing it in the next presentation. And so, yeah, all the artifacts now will, the next step is to curate them at the National Park Service Western Archaeological Conservation Center in Tucson. I know this is really fast, and there's a lot more to discuss with this project. We hope to present on it in the future. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me. This is my email address. I'm sorry I'm not here to take your comments in person. But yeah, and thanks so much to Chris for letting me do this introductory presentation, and good luck. Thanks a lot. Bye.